Hi friends! Welcome to week 2 of 8 weeks to strong and calm yoga style. Leslie here with your workout 3 of week 2. Today's workouts are going to be broken up into upper body and lower body. So if when you're looking at these workouts today, if your legs are really sore from previous workouts, consider doing the upper body first and then coming back and doing the lower body when your body's had a chance to recover. If you do have any questions about recovery time, if you're feeling really, really sore after our last session, or you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I would love to connect. And yeah. Looking forward to today's session. So we don't need a lot for today's session. I've got small weights. I've got some 8-pounders today. If you're familiar with these movements, you can take the weight up quite a bit. And if these movements are brand new to you, then you might not need any weight at all. I also have a band. I brought over several different types of bands so I can show you a few different variations or modifications for some of the stuff that we're doing today. But we'll start out with foam rolling. So because today we're focusing on the lower body, let our warm-up focus on the lower body. I'm going to start with foam rolling my calves. And then after our warm-up, we're going to do 2 small circuits for our main workout. So we've got a circuit of 3 exercises and then a circuit of 2 exercises that will repeat as many times as we would like to today. Hope you enjoy. All right, foam rolling the calves. So here, I'm going to spend about 20 seconds rolling each of the calves. Remember, if your calves are really tight, you don't have to lift up the hips. I find that it is a nice upper body warm up when we lift the hips up with the arms. That's here. We don't really need to. So if when you're doing some foam rolling, you notice some really big knots, if as you're going through the practice, you notice that they might be those areas of knots or tightness or tension, whatever you want to call it, or whatever you're experiencing, is impeding your movement practice, then please take a break and foam roll, and then come back and see if that affects the way that you're moving in a positive way or not. There we go. Second side. Yeah, so often, especially in the lunges, like if you're noticing that it's kind of creaky in the knees or that you're just feeling a lot in the calves, then you can take a break and try and foam roll, even in the middle of a set if you need to. It's better to try and get yourself to a place where you're feeling like you're moving more functionally instead of moving kind of around things that might be impeding your movement. There we go. Shins feel warm. My calves feel warm, but I am going to do my shins. So to roll my shins, I'm going to come from all fours. I'm going to place my shin on the roller. So most of the muscle of the shins are to the lateral or outside of that leg. So I kind of roll a little bit to one side as I do this. You can also use a little ball, a tennis ball, a lacrosse ball, even a water bottle will work great on the calves and on the shins here. So if you don't have a foam roller, don't worry. There we go. And in the last video, I talked about how you can also roll joints around. So if you see my foot here, if I'm on that shin, if I point and flex or take the foot around in circles, that can be really helpful. I'm going to roll my quads. Coming onto my forearms. So anytime I'm doing foam rolling, you want to keep the core engaged, the belly button gently drawing towards the spine. And then walk yourself up and down. And then if you would like, you can roll a little bit to one side or the other. If this is really intense for you, consider using a rolled up blanket instead, or don't spend a ton of time on that area. Our goal here is warming up, so we keep moving. And then I want to make sure that I get my hips, my low back, so I'm going to sit on my foam roller today and roll to one side. So I'm getting gluteus maximus here, up into the low back. And then switch sides. So feel free to do this at your own pace if you need to slow it down and spend some time somewhere. To move into the external rotators, I'm going to cross my right ankle over my left and roll back and forth. Right there. And I'm going to switch sides. Same thing here. And because I love it so much, and because really, even though it's a leg day, so many of the exercises that we're going to do, they require engagement of the full body. So making sure that our back is loose, our thoracic spine is mobile is going to make sure that, that we keep the intention of these exercises right where we want them. So moving into my thoracic spine, so if I was just to place this on my low back, I really don't like the way that that feels from this position. So I like to do my mid and upper back first. Watching my hair. Another fun thing to do here, fun in quotes, you can hook one elbow and then roll to that side. That kind of opens up the shoulder blade a little bit, making the rhomboids, muscles that attach from the shoulder blade to the spine, a little more accessible there. And then to get into the low back, I'm going to come into bridge position. And we're going to get real familiar with bridge position today. So lying on my back, my head is flat. Then I'm going to push into my heels, lift my hips. Then I'm going to roll the foam roller up to my hips and then draw my knees up. Then I can just kind of wiggle back and forth until the foam roller is where I like it. And then here I might just roll gently side to side. The further out my feet are, the more intense it's going to be. I'm not trying to turn this into a core exercise right now, so I'm just going to keep my heels pretty close to my bum and rock lightly side to side. So sometimes if my low back is really tight, if I pause in one area, take a few deep breaths, that can offer me quite a bit of relief. Then another thing that I like to do here is just coming into a little bit of a child's pose on my back. Your knees wide, your knees narrow. Good. Then I'm gonna plant my feet, lift my hips, and move the bolster off to the side. Okay, so you can see when I did that, I came up on my toes and I lifted my hips, but today we're gonna focus a lot on pushing through the heels. Let me get that out of your view. All right, so I'm done with my foam roller for the day. And then I wanna do some mobilization exercises. So I'm gonna start with mobilizing the low back. I'm gonna bring my feet together and then drop my knees over to one side and then over to the other. Oftentimes when I do this, I feel my back just pop, just a little, or I feel like a nice stretch around the hips and the low back area, so side to side. You can take the hands out like a T if you'd like. So in this variation, my feet are together, my thighs are together, and that Gets it more into my low back. Just like if I was doing child's pose with my knees narrow or hugging in with my knees narrow, it's more of a stretch in the low back than in the hips. And then if I want to open up into the hips, now from here, I'm going to step the feet a little bit wider. They're wider than my hips, and then I'm going to let both knees fall side to side. So now I'm adding in a little internal and external rotation. I do like to flex my feet when I do this, but if it doesn't bother your knees, then having your feet flexed doesn't matter quite as much. All right. And we're going to do one of my favorite exercises. I like to call it open the book because it helps me remember. But in the app that you have, it's titled thoracic spine mobility, which is what it's doing. So our thoracic spine is the middle part of our spine, and we want to make sure that it is pretty limber as we are moving through our exercises. Otherwise, the low back and the mid back start to take over for what maybe the upper back and shoulders or the legs should be doing, the legs and hips. Before I do that though, I'm going to come into some cat and cows. I think cat and cows are really incredible for everything because here I can assess how my shoulder blades are feeling. My shoulder blades should be pretty mobile. They should allow for protraction and retraction, elevation and depression. So here we're looking for those planes of movement. You can drop the chest down, shoulder blades together, and just push into the upper back, or as we add in the hips, finding more of that elevation and depression of scapula. I also want to bring awareness into my hips. Are my hips finding anterior and posterior pelvic tilt as I do this? So getting some more mobility into the low back, into the hips. Okay. And then I had some questions as I was talking with each of you about considerations if you're like brand new or if you're older. And I would say that you know, it really depends on your history of movement. But one of the best things that you can do is just a really long warm up. Just keep doing gentle movement exercises. And then when we move our way into the main workout, if all those movements are brand new to you, feel free to go through one set of each of them, and then move on to maybe your finishers. And then if you have more energy, then consider coming back and trying a second, third, or fourth set, depending on how you're feeling. So with that, our last mobility exercise, open the book. It's a side lying exercise. So I'm going to lie on one side. And then my knees, I've always just had them stacked. The angle of the feet is going to change how it feels in your body. The feet a little closer to the bottom is going to be easier. And with the knees about 90 degrees or the shins kind of parallel to my mat is going to be a little bit more challenging. If being in this position doesn't feel very good, you might consider taking a block, a pillow, or any other prop that you might have between your thighs here to give your hips a little bit more space. And I would also say that that's a good variation if you've had any hip surgery and you need to keep a little bit more space in your hips. So that can be really helpful. Next, I'm going to stack my hands and my shoulders. So I've got a straight line from my shoulders to my hips. And then here, my shoulders are stacked. And I like to add in a little bit of a reach first. So my top hand, which in this position today is my left hand, is going to reach past my right hand. Then I'm going to draw the shoulder back into the shoulder socket. And from this strong, stable position, I'm going to open up and then roll as much as I feel comfortable onto my back. As I exhale, I'll come back around. And then I'm going to do my little variation of reaching forward, drawing the shoulder blade back. It's called the somatic movement, just a little movement through the joint, and then reaching up and over. And now I'm trying to roll, I'm trying to lead with my left shoulder blade. You can look all the way to the left, to the other side, or your head can be neutral. And then as I exhale, I'm going to come back. Reach, get some shoulder movement, strong, stable shoulder, try and rotate without letting the knees go with you as best you can, and over. Here. And then I think this is 6. May have lost count. So one thing that I do really enjoy is just taking a few moments in this open shape. And I might even add in just a little bit of energy, a little bit of stretch by taking my hands to the top of my left leg there with my right hand, and then really trying to feel that left shoulder blade coming towards the ground. If the ground is super far away from you, feel free to place some blankets or other props there so that the range of motion feels doable and supported. And we're going to switch sides. So I'm going to do 6 here. You can also place a blanket or another pillow underneath the head if you'd like. And I can see that my hand is out of the screen. So here. Then again, I'm going to reach my left hand forward. I'm going to draw the shoulder back into the shoulder socket. And then I'm going to reach all the way up and over. Ideally, I would have enough space to go all the way back behind me. If you don't, you can bend the elbow and take kind of a cactus arm as your final shape. And inhale. And the shoulder back. This should be a pretty feel-good shape. So support yourself to that, to achieve a little ease here. And last one. Open the book. And now I'm going to stay in my open book and just add a little bit of energy. Here we go. All right. Now coming up to stand. I also added in a set of just body weight squats. If this is not part of our main workout, this is just a way to warm up the legs and a way to practice this very important movement pattern. So feet right outside of the hips. Hands can be wherever you need them. If you are challenging yourself, you know, we can start with hands as a counterbalance as the butt goes back. Here. If you want to challenge yourself, you might have your hands down. If you really want to challenge yourself, you could take your hands up overhead. Notice how when the hands come up over the head, the tendency is to really arch the back here. So trying to keep the arms in line with the ears as we sit. Okay, so doing 10 squats. Any variation will do. 2, 3, I'm paying attention to my shins. I'm pushing my butt back. 5, my back is pretty flat. I'm not rounding here. 4. You know, if this is something that really tends to bother your knees, I want you to notice where your knees are in space. There is some movement of the quads here, but you might need to have a little bit of support to keep yourself pushed back far enough. So if my knees are starting to go over my toes, then then I'm really going to use my quads, which is attached to the patella tendon, and so that can create a lot of discomfort there. So provide support for yourself if you need it. And then when you're done with our 10, and we're good. All right, so our first little set of our main workout is going to include clamshells, super functional movement pattern, glute bridges, and then banded walks or side lunges if we don't have a band. So moving through those three, clamshells, coming onto the side again. You can take supermodel pose, supporting the head, or feel free to take a blanket or anything underneath there. And then in my traditional clamshells, I've got my knees bent to about like 45 degrees, I'd say. I've got my heels so that they're kind of right in line with my hips. And then my shoulders should also be right in line with my hips. And then with the feet stacked on top of each other, I'm going to lift the knee up here. Here. So what you want to do is place your hand on kind of the outer upper hip for a moment, and then as that knee comes up, see if you are controlling that movement with the muscle of the outer hip. And for some of you, it might feel really, really tight. So you can also take that top hand on the ground, and as you push into the ground, it can help you get a little bit more leverage to lift that leg up. We don't need to take it all the way up or really far, but you want to feel like it's being controlled by that outer upper hip. It's actually our glute med is isolating that shape. So if you do want to use a band, if that's pretty easy for you and you know that, then we can take a band, tie it in a circle, or have a circular band, and place that right on the upper thighs. So then here, then we can add in a little bit of resistance, and we're going to 12, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Those are not easy. And I'm going to switch sides. So now I'm here. And then 12. 1, 2, 3. You'll probably notice one side's a lot harder than the other. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Woo, nice job. If you're using a band, you can leave the band on as we come into our glute bridges. If these are brand new for you, then you can remove the band. Another way to add some resistance into this shape, if this is feeling pretty easy for you, is taking weight. I've got my 2 dumbbells here. You can take a weight and place them on your hips. If you have heavy weight, I've also draped a blanket across my hips and then placed the weights on top of that from there. A bar can also be really nice here, but remember, you don't have to use weights. I'm going to put these off to the side. And I'll show you just our regular bridge. So my feet are about hip width apart. Okay? So for me, that's about where my feet should be in my squat. And if I place my hands on my 2 hip points, my ASIS, I should be able to draw those down through the center of the knee, and then I should feel like they're kind of right at the 2nd or 3rd toe there. If this position doesn't feel good to you, feel free to walk your feet a little bit wider, walk your feet a little bit narrower. Our goal today is to really focus on pushing through the heel, but the whole foot should be able to be anchored. If the legs are too far away, you're probably going to feel this more in the quads. We want to walk the heels relatively close to the glutes, but some people can touch their heels when they're there and some people can't. So don't worry about like, do I need to touch my heels? How close? So just start to feel it. You want to feel like this is working in the center of the hips. I'm going to take a deep breath in. And then exhale, lift the hips and come into bridge pose. So I'm not trying to overarch. I'm trying to find that neutral position, straight line, theoretically, from the knees to the hips to the shoulders, and then lower down. So 12 here. Picking your poison. 2, 3, keep the face relaxed. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then 12. And go ahead and hold at the top for a moment. So if you were having any trouble feeling that in the hips, holding it at the very top of the exercise and taking a couple breaths, and then finding the little micro shifts for you that you need in order to keep the energy at the back of the legs and in the glutes. The knees are soft, and then 1. Nice. Drawing the knees in. And then rocking up to a seat. So our first 2 exercises, we did clamshells and we did our glute bridges. Next, we've got our lateral band walk or our side lunges. So if you don't have a band, you can either mimic this movement and imagine that you're moving against resistance, against a band, which I've done this a lot with people. It's super functional. Or you can take side lunges. So side lunges, coming into a squat on one side of the body. So I'm still with my pretty vertical shin. My hips are back. My chest is lightly forward. Again, I'm not here. I'm not collapsing. I'm using my core to help hold the body upright. Leading with the hips, stepping, and then coming to stand. And then if you choose that variation, you might just go side to side. So here and here. And then do 12 on each side or 24 total. Unless you start to get fatigued earlier than that, feel free to take breaks as you need to and listen to your body. For the band walks, you can take the band in a variety of different positions. So if you've got a circular band, you can place the band around the calves. Around the calves. You can place the band, so from the calves it would look like this. Because I've definitely had resistance bands that I couldn't get up to my thighs. So that's a thing. And then if you have a band that you can bring all the way up to the thighs, these ones can be hard. Sometimes they fold on themselves and then it's like kind of painful. It digs into your strong, beautiful thighs. But so same exact movement. It's a step, it's a shift. I'm leading with the hip. So the tendency here is to step and then to lead with the knee as we go forward. But we're leading with the outer hip and then step. Okay. We try and keep tension on the band the whole time. You can also utilize a band with a handle. So when I do this version, I tend to wear shoes. It doesn't always feel the most comfortable on my feet, but I've definitely done it with bare feet before too. So here, then we can step on the band like so, and then I'm gonna walk my hands down the band until, as I'm in my little mini squat, that I feel that there's tension there. And then this position, I would step, shift my hip, and then step. From here, looks like this. probably go the other way. My right hip's gonna be super strong. So choosing your poison, I'm gonna choose my circular band. We're gonna do 12 steps in one direction, 12 steps in the other. This is a place that if you're really familiar with this and you want to add in another set before we, another set of 12 on each side. If you would like to do that before we restart this part A, feel free to do so. And then we begin. I'm going to walk off camera as I take 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. If you don't have space, you can always do like 6 and 6. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. As I come back. Ooh, you can see my shadow. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Woo! Cool. So that was our first set. So you have the option of doing 1 to 4 sets of those 3 exercises. I'm going to do one more set with you, and then I'll move on to part B. In between the sets that we work, feel free to take water breaks, feel free to take a full rest. If you feel like you need to pause and roll anything out or take some stretches here, it's nice to give yourself about a minute and a half between our rounds that we do. When you're ready, we'll start again with our clamshells. So picking your variation that you would like of clamshells. Got my band. Remember, you don't need to use a band. And here, knees are about 90 degrees, heels right behind my hips. And then 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. Keep the muscles of your face relaxed. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Nice. Switching sides. Twelve, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Coming into my bridges. Here. My feet are hip width apart, so if you are wearing a band, you might need to gently push against the band as we lift the hips. Adjusting my feet hip width apart. Deep breath in. And then exhale. Good. 1. You can always make these harder by always pausing at the top We're going really, really slow on the way up or on the way down. Sometimes even pausing part way, and then again at the top can also add another element of control and challenge. 4, 5, 6, 7. Make sure the whole foot is planted and that you're not lifting the big toe mounds. 12. So if you want that little bonus, you can hold at the top, relax the upper body, the muscles of the face, feel it really isolated in the hamstrings and the glutes. You will feel your quads working. 3, 2, 1, and lower. Nice. Then we can come up for either our side lunges or our band walk. And remember, you have the option of doing these 2 times if you would like. So this time, I'm going to have the band around my ankles, and I'm going to wobble off screen. So I can start here, and hopefully you guys can see me for the majority of my set. All right, so 12, I'm assuming my mini squat position. Step, shift, lead with my hip, make sure my knee doesn't go over my toe, and then stand or step. So keep tension on the bands. 4, so my upper body is still engaged. 5, my belly button is drawing towards my spine. 7, 8, it's taking a lot of energy to control. 9, 10, 11, and 12. Shake it out. And then a little mini squat. Make sure you can see your toes. Step, shift. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Woo! This time I'm going to do my bonus step. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I want to feel this all on the side. 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Whew. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. See how my knee's not leading? 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Woohoo! Nice. Yay! So that was the second set of our first part A of our main workout. If you would like to do more, feel free to pause this and then repeat maybe a 3rd or 4th time if you're feeling up to it. Next, we've got part B, which is also focusing on the lower body. We've got 2 movements. Part B consists of the Romanian deadlift and the curtsy lunge. So the Romanian deadlift just means that we're doing a hinge movement using the hips as a hinge to come up. So instead of like a squat, instead of sitting down like this and coming up where my vector forces are kind of, I'm going down and then I'm going up. With my hinge, I want to think about the hips going back and then the hips going forward. So it's this direction instead of this direction. So vertical versus horizontal. I think that's a helpful thing to remember. With the Romanian deadlifts, if you've never done these before, this is my mobility rod, and this is what I often give to my clients as one of their first assessments, to just kind of see how this movement feels intuitively in their body. At home, I've used a broom or any other large object that I could find. And what this is helpful for is if I take it behind my back, then I've got a few points. If I take my hand behind my head, and then my hand to my low back and grab onto the bar there, then as I fold over, I can notice if I'm really rounding my back and the edge of my bar wants to come up, or if I'm able to find length in my spine, which might mean that I don't go super far. Your hamstrings will often dictate how far you can go in this shape. So here, I'm folding over. So my hips are actively reaching back and my sternum is actively reaching forward. I'm pressing into all 4 feet. I do feel like my center of gravity is still with that little bend in the knees, but still pretty vertical shins, that my center of gravity, back and forth, is right over my ankles, so that I can power through both feet to come all the way up to rise. So Romanian deadlift, we inhale down. You want to engage the muscles of the back, pick up the pit of the belly, and then exhale, squeeze the glutes as you pull them through. So it's the same movement as our bridge. If you would like, you can do this holding a block between the thighs, which many people have said gives them a nice support as they work on this movement pattern, focusing on their back. So feel free, if you're here, to just work there. You can also take the hands down the legs, work here. You do want to feel like it's your hips pulling through that's doing the main movement of this pose. And we don't want to go past neutral into a big arch. We're coming back into more or less our neutral shape. To do this with a band, you can take the band around the feet. And then if I stand up tall, I should have a little tension. And then if I lean over, I should feel a stretch in my hamstrings. And then I can come up right to here. And if I'm using dumbbells, here. So if you're using a kettlebell, you just have one weight. You might take your feet just a little bit wider. With dumbbells, I'm going to turn my palms so that they face my thighs, and then the whole time I'm really actively drawing my shoulders back. I'm not doing it so much that my back comes into an arch, but I don't want to round my shoulders forward at the end of this. So at the very bottom of the shape, I'm always asking myself, are my shoulders pulled back? If I feel like I'm rounded here, if I'm feeling tension in the middle of my back, I want to pull the weight to really close to me. I want to draw my shoulders back, reach my heart forward, and lengthen my tail back behind me. So it might mean that you're here, just below the knees to get that length for you. And then exhale and come up. Here and here. So Romanian deadlift, choose your own adventure, and we'll do 12 before moving on to protein lunges. Inhale to lower, and exhale back. You can see the weight is really close, like I'm shaving my legs. If my weight moves away from my body, even if it's just my arms, so if it's just your arms sliding down, you still want to keep the shoulders drawing back. You still want to keep the core engaged. You want to feel like it takes movement from the whole body to come up. 5, 6, 7. As I get to the bottom of my shape, I feel my hips load. So I feel like a gentle stretch, but not so much that I can't engage as I come back up. 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay. All right. High five. Next we have curtsy lunges. So it's just 2 exercises in this circuit, curtsy lunges and our Romanian deadlifts. If you've never done curtsy lunges before, you may have a countertop handy or something else that you can place your hands on. If you've done this before, you can have weights, you can have a kettlebell right in front. If this is really easy for you, then you can try with your hands up overhead, which is going to be even more challenging. The basics for the curtsy lunge. So we did our reverse lunges the other day, here and back up, here and back up. When I'm doing a reverse lunge, as I lunge back, my foot stays in line with the hip as it lowers down. And then as I come back up, I'm using that front hip, front glute. In the curtsy lunge, instead of the leg going straight back, the leg crosses the body. So I'm either on a tightrope, moving towards a tightrope, or maybe I'm past where my foot goes way over to the side. So it's going to depend on your anatomy and how much mobility you have as you find that positioning for that back foot. But you're looking for a really narrow lunge. When I'm doing my curtsy squat, it's going to be even more important to notice what your knees are doing. So when I'm coming into my curtsy lunge, I'm stepping back and then over. Now, from the side, it might look exactly like your other lunges. My knee is right over my ankle. It's got just a little bit of lateral movement in the knee, but basically my knee is pointed straight ahead. My back knee, if I need it to, can come all the way down to the ground. But if I do take it all the way down to the ground, I want to really make sure that I tilt forward, that I'm using the hip of my front leg to help me come up. Second side here, lower, watching that front shin, trying to keep it as vertical as I can, and then using that front hip to come up. Alternating between sides is going to be a little bit easier than doing one side and then the other. So again, choose your own adventure, and we'll go from there. Today, I'm going to use my dumbbells, and I'll go from the side where I think you'll be able to see me the best. So we're going to do 12 on each side, or 24 total. We take an inhale to step back and lower, and exhale to come up. 12, 11, really driving through that front heel. 10. My body weight, my upper body is tilted just a little bit forward. 9. To keep my center of gravity either between the 2 legs or right over the ankle of the front leg as I step forward. 7. Another way to make these a little easier is to just not go quite as low. 12. Nice. Then switching sides, I'll switch directions. And lunging back. 12. 11. 10. 9. 8. 7. 6. It takes a lot of energy to keep my chest up. 5, 4. I'm exhaling as I come up so that I have a little extra. Oh, I said 3, 2. Nice. Yes. So, curtsy lunges. Awesome. Back to our Romanian deadlifts. If you want to break between sides, you can take a moment to foam roll, to squat, to stretch, to grab some water. We can give ourselves some time here. That was good work. I'm going to take a little stretching in my side lunges, nice inner thigh stretch. So with these Romanian deadlifts, the deadlifts were also really working the inner thighs as well, which you can feel, especially if you do the Romanian deadlifts while squeezing onto a block. One more round. Romanian deadlift. I'm going to use my dumbbells again. Here, lift the heart. Inhale. And exhale. 12. 11. 10. 9. 8. 7. 6. 5. 4. 3. 2. 1. Okay. Curtsy lunges. I'll do from this direction this time. And then today, or for the second round, I'm going to start with just one leg. I'm going to complete all my rounds on that one leg, and then I'll switch sides. I'm looking like this. Inhale to step back and lower. Exhale, come up. If you want to add in a balance, you can also add in a little knee lift. Inhale. 3. You can't really see my front foot. Scoot back. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. 11. 12. Whew. Inhale, step back. Exhale, come up. 11. 10. Really watch that front knee. 9. Look one side. 8. 7. 6. 5. 4. 3. 2. 1. Ooh. Nice. High five. So that completes the second set of part B, our main workout. Moving into our finishers right before our closing exercises, or our closing stretches, I should say. We've got 2 cardio exercises. Then moving on to our finishers, we've got 2 cardio movements for 30 seconds each that we will put into another small circuit. So 1, 2, 4 sets if you'd like. Ice skaters and Russian twists. So ice skater movements, again, outer lateral hips. Our ice skaters, the lower we get and the further we get, the more challenging it's going to be. If you're pretty new to these, you can start real small, just weight transfer. You're going to try and take the foot behind you, here, here. This is nice beginner. You can also just step here, step there. Try and do that for 30 seconds. Try and keep your balance. And if you're pretty advanced at this, then we can make it bigger and we can make it faster. So I'm going to move hazards out of my way because I'm real good at tripping on them. And I'm going to set my timer. 30 seconds. Moving it off to the side. And, oh, transfer, reach, reach. We want to take these longer, bigger, faster, as far, as fast as we can. So the wider we go, the more we're going to get into those outer hips. Keep your heart lifted. So I'm not rounding my back here. Sometimes it's nice to have like a little cone or a little prize to reach and touch for. I skate at us. Go, 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 go. You're so fast. You're so strong. Whew. Almost there. Seconds. I knew that was longer than 30 seconds. You say how so I turned the volume up. Okay. That was for ice skaters. Yeah. So now we have Russian twists. As we come onto our seat. Whew. You're gonna lean back lightly. Feel free to keep the feet on the ground. This is a rotational exercise. You can start with just your hands. Imagine like you're holding onto a ball. Lift the heart and then rotate side to side. Finding a gentle squeeze on the obliques. If you'd like, you can add in weight. Yoga block. Here, here. Russian twist, usually the elbows are bent and it's quick movements back and forth. Take as much time as you need. And if you want to add weight, you can hold the dumbbell like this. You can hold the dumbbell like this. You can hold on to a kettlebell. Whatever works for you. And we will set our timer. Setting our timer. Turning up the volume. And do my first set without weight. And go. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm kind of leading more with my elbows, keeping my dancer pose. So my, not like dancer pose in yoga, but keeping square in my upper body as I get rotation. If I want, lift my feet. Try to go faster. 5, 4, 3, 2, depending on what your goals are, you can continue. Another 2, 3, or 4 rounds. If that felt like quite a challenge, feel free to stop right there and you do you. All right, I'm gonna do my second set, starting with my mountain climbers, and my volume's up this time, so I'm gonna know when 30 seconds has happened. Okay. Mentally prepare. I'm so fast. I'm so fast. I'm so strong. And go. Nice, 5 seconds. And time. Yay! High fives. All right. Turkish. Nope, not a Turkish. A Russian twists. I don't know where these came from. I'm assuming these came from Russia, but I don't actually know. But they're called Russian twists. So, setting your timer at a place where you can see it and hear it. 30 seconds. Go. Keep your chest lifted. 10 seconds. 2, 1. Done. Yes. I love finishers. I feel like they make me feel so strong, so fast. And they really do help with your footwork, at least when we do things that involve feet, like our ice skaters. So now we want to think about all the areas of the body that we've worked. We did a lot of work on our hips in many different planes. We did some work on the kind of mid-back, just holding the shoulders into places, takes some energy and some effort, and maybe even the core. So we will address all of those. Starting with our psoas stretch. You can take this several ways. The way that we have in the app is called the couch stretch, and I love that variation. So that variation, my back leg here, I take the foot and I put it on the edge of the couch, and then I lean back into a place. I feel like I'm getting not a super intense stretch, but enough. If you don't have a couch, you can also do it at the wall by trying to get that knee real close to the wall. I'll often place a lot of blankets underneath it, and then we can step forward from here. So this took me a really long time to get this mobile, and this is really hard ground, so I don't like the way that feels. I'm just gonna come up. Dancer pose, so same thing. Feel free to get an assist with this if you'd like. You can use a wall or whatever. So here, if I wanted to get more into my psoas, I might take it into my opposite arm and reach up. When I talk about psoas, it's a hip flexor, it's deep. It crosses through the hip joint and attaches to the low back. So if you're feeling a gentle pulling like through the core, like deep, maybe even a pull in the back, then that's what it is. That's our psoas. And release. switch sides. We're also stretching the quadriceps muscles here. So there's 4 muscles on the front of the thigh that make up the quad. I'm switch my hands and try reaching up with this hand today. Feeling the position of your hips, you might notice the stretch change. About 30 seconds each, or longer. I found that for myself, taking about 5 full deep breaths. However, right after the workout, when my breath is pretty shallow, adding in like 10 breaths, just until you feel like, whew, okay, I feel like there was some shift there. And if you try and force yourself into a stretch at its peak, oftentimes you won't feel that release. You'll just feel like, okay, good, 30 seconds is up and I'm out. So we want to try and kind of back ourselves off a little bit and find maybe not the most intense stretch, but a stretch that we can hold a little bit longer, that we might actually feel ourselves moving through. And so next I'm going to come into my thoracic spine. We showed this one before on the foam roller, or maybe on the wall. I'm coming up here, just letting the chest drop forward. Nice. And so if you have a wall, you can try with the hands more narrow or the hands wider. That can be a really nice stretch. If you don't have a wall, you can come down on the ground. You might find something that you can put a little bit more elevated than the ground. So I've got my second block here. And then sitting back and letting the chest drop through. So you can come in and out of these if you'd like, or you can just hold. And then I'll come out of there, and then I'll take my hamstring stretch. So you can do this standing, just a staggered stance. You're kind of hinging over one leg. I might have a countertop here, focusing on a stretch at the back of my leg. I can also come to the ground and lift one leg here. And if I'm tight, I might take some support. Maybe there's a couch or pot in a pan handy. And then I'm trying not to round my back. I'm trying to lift my heart, find space there. If you'd like, you can take some ankle circles. Switching sides. So another way that we could have done that hamstring stretch is on our back. And as we transition to this next stretch, the IT band, you can also do this on the back, or you can do this from the lunge position that we were just in. So if I'm here, and now I want to transfer the energy from the back of my leg to the outside of my leg, then I'm going to cross that front leg a little bit more to the opposite side, and then I might take my hands and move them to the outside of that right leg, or maybe even grabbing a block or anything else that we can grab there. So now Now it's across the body and I'm dragging my hip in the opposite direction. I could even take one hand into that hip and drop back. And then we can see how this would translate onto the back here. Now, I don't want to put energy into my stretching at the end, so I'm going to use my band to help me find some length here. So I could have done this for my hamstring stretch, but I'm going to focus on my IT band on my back here. Just drawing the outer hip across the body and then finding length. So with my hand here, if this is my right leg, my right hand might be on top of the thigh or thumb into the hip crease, and you're gently pushing the thigh away from the head. So you're actually lengthening that femur out of the hip socket just a little bit as we find a nice, beautiful stretch. Again, if this is causing like a lot of tension or tightness in the face, like back it off. Come to a point where it's like a 3, 4, slowly find more space. Take the leg out to the side because that feels good. And then back up. Good. As I switch legs. And then IT band crossing the midline of the body. Now, and that left hand, whatever leg you're on, it doesn't have to add in. If you're feeling like that's enough of a stretch, you can just let the hands rest by the sides. Just be in this shape. And coming back through center and then releasing the leg. And then Shavasana. All right. So taking just a moment on your back to acknowledge why you were here in the first place. And to thank yourself for this cleansing act of moving the body, of helping ourselves to process things. And then finding contentment with all that you did. If there's ever a feeling like, oh, I wish I had done more, we can pause and remind ourselves that at least we started. We did more than start. We made it through. And what's more important than a killer workout is just being able to move the body consistently through time. And so having the knowledge, being equipped with the knowledge that we know ourselves better than anyone ever will. And we need to trust that we have our own time, and that we can be present and disciplined in a way that continues to nurture and support our long-term growth. We can be our greatest ally. And we're in a science experiment right now. I'm trying to test out where our edges are, to see when we need to push ourselves a little more, or when we need to back off. And we let this knowledge seep in and process. And we thank ourselves for making it to the mat. And then we move on with our hope you enjoyed today's workout. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye, my friends.